So I'm going to talk about some Northwest bands, and this is from a state of my opinion, but also from my experience being in the Northwest music scene at that time and being very interested on what was going on, especially heavy stuff. So anything that was heavy rock oriented, the heavier, the fucking better, in my opinion. So, I'm gonna state that I saw Alice in Chains at a skate rink. I want to say 1987 or 88, and they opened for Blind Ambition, a Tacoma band they were like early Iron Maiden influence stuff. So Alice in Chains to me came across as like Hairspray, LA influenced glam rock, but on the heavier edge of glam, but not heavy like they became. More like kind of like, oh, okay, next. That's all I felt. They made me yawn. So, in 1989, Soundgarden released Louder Than Love. And before that, they had released Ultra Mega OK. And I wasn't aware of Ultra Mega OK until I had heard Louder Than Love. Now, Louder Than Love, well, no, that's not true. Hold on. I may have became aware of them around the same time. Kurt Cobain actually originally told me about Hunted Down. Now that song is on Ultra Mega OK, and that would have been in like 1988 era. So he did originally, but I don't think that I was that familiar with Soundgarden or that interested until after Louder Than Love came out. So this is Louder Than Love is a very important record for the Northwest grunge heavy rock scene that became successful. Now, in my opinion, though, I am stating opinion, but in a pretty factual basis here. Alice in Chains, their sound changed. So there was these practice spaces called the Metal Shop in Tacoma, and a lot of local. I think Alice in Chains even practiced there at one point. So a lot of local bands practiced there, and there were a lot of bands at that time, between 87 and 89 that were riding on the LA rock Hairspray look and sound that was glam. So very glam influenced. And a lot of bands really wanted to get record deals. Now, I remember one day there was a stack right before Facelift came out, there was a single. And it was a single of, I think it was Men in the Box and, I don't remember the first song that's on. Hold on, I have that fucking record right here. Alright, what the hell's the name of that fucking song, man? Okay, We Die Young. Okay. So, that was the first time that I heard the heavy Alice in Chains. So We Die Young, and I think it was Man in the Box was the other song on there. That on the 2-song or 3-song single. Anyway, when I heard that, I instantly was like, whoa, they sound like Soundgarden meets Nirvana now. Now at that time, there was, there wasn't really that many heavy, like, rock bands at that time in the Northwest that people, was starting to get into the local songwriters' consciousness. You know, the Melvins were the initial catalyst, for songwriters that were into like Black Sabbath and into like heavy rock stuff from the 70s or whatever, and hearing the Melvins were like, well, wow, oh, this is, we can actually do our own version of Sabbath. So the Melvins were the first band to really do that. I think they initially really inspired. I mean, there was other bands that were, of course, like played some heavy rock parts, but the Melvins were like it's the difference between somebody tapping you on the shoulder and someone kicking you in the ass. The Melvins kicked you in your ass with like heavy rock. I mean, when they first started playing slow, it was like, whoa. I mean, I fucking loved it. I don't need to even talk about it. I mean, anybody that watches my videos you're gonna know that. So, musicians that would listen, guitarists, would be, I don't know how they wouldn't be inspired by the Melvins. Anyway, so, there's obvious points in listening to Louder Than Love, the song Gun. Listen to Gun, I mean, I listen to that and I'm like, oh, I mean, that's basically like starting off just like a Melvin song. I mean, probably like almost note for note, but changing it, and of course they made it more easy to digest. Soundgarden was very like, fuck yes, like damn good heavy songwriters. So Facelift and Dirt existed because the heaviness of those albums, because of Soundgarden and bands like there's no doubt Nirvana was making waves by 88 and 89 with Bleach. People knew who they were, and they knew that like, fuck man, word was spreading like fire, man. People were hearing, they were hearing recordings, they were hearing from me, whatever, right? I mean, there's just a lot of positive word about Nirvana. I mean, for me at least, it was like I felt they were more influential than Soundgarden in 1989. For locally. I mean, that's again, it's like it's hard to really understand this unless you were here, but I'm trying to stress something that is still in the realm of opinion, and you can take it however you want, but it's an opinion of mine based on experience and based on being here and seeing these bands and being very interested in all of, that's what I'm saying, in all the bands, the original rock, heavy punk bands that were playing around at that time. Bands wanted to get a record deal, so a band like Alice in Chains, it would have only taken really a really good producer at that time to go like, hey, maybe we should try to make this sound a little more like Soundgarden, like some of the riffs. And don't think that stuff doesn't happen, because it does. It really does, Louder Than Love took off, in a sense, in the Northwest. It was the first heavy rock album from a local band, like heavy, that really got exposure. And that inspired a lot of people. Like I was saying, at that same time, you have Nirvana. Now there's some juggling and influences there. You have a lot of people in bands at that time going to see each other's bands, and you're being inspired by each other's bands, and you're being inspired by other music. So it all starts to you know, create this. I mean, this is how the Northwest music scene was partially formed, and I'm talking about this from my point of view, being a songwriter at that time, and having some of the same, aspirations or whatever you want to say as a lot of musicians at that time. Working hard, like that was, the number one most important thing to me was being in a band, creating music, and yes, making a living off of music was totally, and I mean, you wanted that. Like I've said in a past video, I know various bands and friends that, lived in their practice rooms, man. I remember walking into practice rooms down at the metal shop and literally 10 people being crashed out in the practice room with fucking, garbage laying around from food, girls laying around. I mean, like literally living your band. That's what happened at that time. And bands were very inspired off of other bands. Now, Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction was really, really influential here. There's just that's a fact. So the LA, so you got Guns N' Roses, then you have Louder Than Love, and you have bands like the Melvins and Nirvana, like coming into. So you have this collaboration of a little bit of punk rock influenced in there with like heavy rock, with glam rock, and with stuff like the Stooges, of course, and MC5 and Black Sabbath. But then obviously the Melvins were the first Northwest band to go, hello, this is how original, really fucking heavy rock is played. I mean, like that. You would have just had to have seen them at that time compared to everything else that was going on, and I mean, they're so good, dude. Like, and amazingly like heavy and loud, and just I mean, yeah, I can't even explain it really. I mean, but if you've seen the Melvins, you get a feeling. But at that time, watching a show and there being 30 people in the audience, and you're watching some punk show and the Melvins are playing. Anyway, they're very, very influential no matter what you think about them. So I know I'm kind of scattered here, and feel free to ask any questions if you have any. But yeah, so Alice in Chains were the first Northwest band to become successful, very successful, from being inspired by other Northwest bands. And I'm not saying just other, they're inspired by a lot, but they were definitely, and they were very key in part of the push of the Northwest grunge movement. You kind of wonder, like, without Alice in Chains, how would have it been stated as, the grunge movement? It's like, because Alice in Chains always came off to me as, there's always that level of like trying hard, and not the complete honesty, but like there's this side that's manufactured, very manufactured. I can't even listen to anything past Dirt. I just, and you get bands like Stone Temple Pilots, that are like, what? I literally thought that I was hearing Alice in Chains. There's even a Stone Temple Pilots song that, like, is this a Nirvana song I haven't? Oh, wait, no, this is Stone Temple Pilots. Yeah. So, yeah, that's a little bit of information about, true look into the Northwest scene from my perspective, and I think from definitely from experience. So anyway, all right, thanks.